This session is going to be, I'll just cut right to the chase, OKRs. Has anyone heard of OKRs? Objectives, key results? Okay, terrific. I see some hands at the back there as well. Awesome. You guys looked really excited, so that was awesome. So, standing up, yeah. So the whole point here of OKRs is to help you focus, align your efforts. We're super excited to be working with each and every one of you and want to help you be successful in your projects. And so I've been kind of reading up on you all and just understanding some of the amazing work that you're doing. So that's what this session is about, because over the next few days, as you heard, you will be interacting with a lot of mentors who are going to be helping you refine, to think about, to challenge, and we're going to try to capture a lot of those work items, goals, objectives in OKRs, or we're inviting you to think of it that way. But before I jump in, here's the agenda. I just want to lay it out there. Why do we need OKRs? A little bit of history lesson, some definition examples, some characteristics. We're going to talk about alignment. I work with a lot of teams. I've gotten a chance to work with a lot of startups around the world, and alignment's always a tough thing. They always come to me and say, Zach, it used to be a team of like 3 people, and we just got lots done. And now we're a team of 20, and things are just slow, communication's bad. And the reality is, the bigger you get, unfortunately, the slower you actually get. And that's why objectives and key results are helpful, because when you clearly articulate what my team's doing, what that team's doing, and then the dependencies, you are able to be clearer about moving forward, especially for your projects. And then we're going to talk about the development process and do some practicing. This morning is just going to be a little bit of a practice, and then later on today, you're going to be meeting with your mentors, talk about your projects, and then coming back Thursday, we're hoping to have maybe a more finalized set of OKRs that you can come out of here, and for the next 6 months, here at a high level, and clearly articulating what you're going to be doing and what success looks like. So as I'm talking, think about your projects and what does success look like? How are you going to measure it? And I'm going to get into some of the details. But before we jump in, let me tell you a quick story. Does anybody know who this is? And it's okay if you don't. I didn't know either. But I've done this talk many times, and I've had 2 people actually know who it is. I see a hand. Very good, very good. Okay, so that's 3 now. So Florence Chadwick. So I'm going to tell a quick, very good. How did you, are you a big swimmer, or you're just, no, that's great. No, that's good. I'm excited. All right. So Florence Chadwick, I'm going to tell you a quick story. So Florence Chadwick was born in 1918 in San Diego, here in California, and she was a big athlete, very adventurous, and one of her famous things that she did was the first woman to swim the English Channel in 1950. And then in 1952, she chose to swim from Los Angeles to Catalina, or the other way around, from Catalina Island, which is a large island off the coast of Los Angeles, to Santa Monica Pier. If you know the geography of California, it's about 26 miles, so about 40 kilometers from Catalina Island to Los Angeles. So that's a long way to go. I'm a bit of a runner, and I can run 26 miles. I can't swim 26 miles, but she was a tough lady. So being a good American, on July 4th, 1952, she decided to go out there and swim from Catalina Island to Santa Monica or Los Angeles. Well, California, even in the summer, it can be cloudy, it can be cold, and the water is chilly. And back then, she had a little bit of support with her as she got in the water. She had her coach in a little boat and her mother with her, or in the boat, kind of escorting her across the ocean. And the coach was carrying a rifle. Any ideas why the coach? Sharks, exactly. At that point, it would have been out of the water. Sorry, we're not doing that. But she was a tough lady, and she didn't give up. So she swam for 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, getting exhausted and kind of starting to think, I'm going to give up. She finally got to 14 hours and just gave up. And she begged her mom and her coach to pull her out. And sure enough, they pulled her out, and then they got to shore. And even back then, in 1952, there was press or media there who were interested in this story, and they went to Florence and said, Florence, why did you give up? You were only a mile from shore. And the answer that she gave is going to maybe be helpful to us as we're discussing today. She said, if I could have seen my goal I wouldn't have given up because of the fog, the waves. And so what we're going to try to do is lift the fog today on what you all are doing for your projects and make it clear about what your goals are. Now, the good news for Florence is she didn't give up, and she reattempted that same swim 3 months later. And this time, even though it was still cold, it was still foggy, and I guess there were still sharks, she was able to successfully swim from Catalina Island to Los Angeles. And so she put another medal on her shelf, I guess, for an amazing physical achievement like that. And apparently she's in the San Diego Sports Hall of Fame, which is why I guess I went there one day and I noticed this and I thought it was an amazing story. So that's a little bit about Florence. We're going to try to lift the fog on what you all are doing with your projects, okay? All right, so this is me. As Jeremy mentioned, I'm a technical program manager. Just a fancy title. It means I work with engineering teams all day long on on the assistant, trying to make the media experience work. So when you say, hey, play Stranger Things on Netflix or show me action or cat videos on YouTube, I work with the YouTube team, work with the engineering teams to help make that all possible. And talk about large teams trying to interact and figure out how to get things done. It can be a challenge, right? In fact, we're just going through Q3 planning. We're starting to do Q3 planning as far as what we're going to do. Before that, I was at Amazon, worked on fraud. We had machine learning models there to figure out who the bad guys are trying to break in, and then I work at some startups, etc. So I've been doing this type of work for quite some time, and I really enjoy it. But one of the other roles I have at Google is as an OKR coach and mentor, and like I mentioned before, I get a chance to travel around with other Launchpad events and work with startups. So I was in Japan or I was in India back in December. Even got a chance to go to Nigeria where we actually have a new AI research office there as well, working with teams. And so it's just really enjoyable for me to see all the different types of projects. And many times, though, there are a lot of similarities between a lot of teams and how they operate. And that's what we're going to talk about today. All right, so let's kind of just jump right into it. Are we doing okay? You guys got your coffee? Okay, like I said, we will do a break a little bit later. All right, so let's jump into organizational challenges and why we need OKRs. I won't go through all of them, but maybe let's just jump into one of them. Let's see, growth. It turns out that just about every company or organization wants to grow. If you look at, if you ask any company or any organization, do you have a strategy? Just about every group or company has some type of strategy. What do I mean by a strategy? What is your value proposition in the market? What are you trying to achieve? Why are you even together as an organization? And just about 90% of every strategy document has some element of growth in it. We want to grow in this new market. We want to meet these new market demands. We have new customers we're going after. We're trying to service different users, etc. And it turns out that only, kind of in corporate world, even though I know we're talking to a lot of nonprofit folks today, that in the corporate world, it turns out only about 5.5% of companies, of Fortune 1000, grow at an annualized rate of, actually it's 9% of companies achieve annualized rate growth of 5.5% or more. Let me say that again. Only about 9% of companies achieve 5.5% growth or more. So every company says they want to grow, very few do. Well, why is that? They have a plan, but they don't do it. And what we're seeing there, and we even see within Google, within every company I've ever worked at, is a disconnect between strategy and execution. Here's our plan. Here's what we actually do. For example, do you ever go to folks on your team and just go to somebody randomly and say, hey, what are the 3 most important things our company, our team, our organization is doing this year? 3 most important. Do you think everyone will say the same thing? You would like to think they would, right? I won't make you raise your hand, but I actually was working with a large company about 2 years ago up in Portland, and I went to their strategy team. These are the officers that were in head of strategy for their company, this large company, and I said, so what are the 3 most important things for this company? And they said, well, if you ask me, it's this, this, and this. But if you ask Frank, what do you think, Frank? And I'm like, you're the strategy officers. The point here is, if it's not clear what success looks like, if it's not clear what the most important projects, initiatives are, then it's not going to be clear for the folks on your team. And maybe you are the team, but even with, if you look at, maybe if it's a 2-person team, do you both agree on what's most important, at least for right now. And if there's disagreement, that can be tough. So strategy and execution, we see a gap. And so what OKRs are meant to do, objectives and key results, is to translate from high level to specific. Here's where we want to go, here's how we're going to do it, and here's what success looks like. How about, let's see, difficulty in executing strategy? Well, it's very similar to what I mentioned there as well. Let's talk about employee engagement. For those teams that have maybe more than 10 people, what we see, at least with a lot of employees now, is that you want, ask yourself this. If you generate the ideas and the work items that you're going to do and the projects you work on, you're probably more excited about the work that you're going to do. You're more motivated. And so OKRs are meant to be both a top-down as well as a bottoms-up approach to doing project planning. So it's not just, I'm the leader, here's what everyone's going to work on. Though you do need that. You do need direction. You do need some sense of here's where we're going to invest time and energy, and here's where we're not. But then asking your team, how do you think we're going to get there? How do we, if we want to get 1 million users this year, and we're going to go into this market and this market, great. Well, how are we going to do it? And then you ask your team how you're going to do it. And so it's a negotiation. You'll see that you get a lot more employee engagement in that way when you talk to your team about what we're talking about here is OKRs and objectives. If you can get buy-in from both top-down and bottoms-up, you'll be much more effective. All right, does that make sense? Just a couple, and then I won't go through all the rest, but the idea here is that you're getting more engagement and clarity around what you're doing. All right? Quick history lesson. I promise not to give a quiz later on, but sometimes folks are like, where did OKRs even come from? I don't understand. Is this a